that will run its course as it should. But foundational to this decision in the mind of the president was the commitment that every commander-in-chief makes with every single member of our armed forces, which is that we will not leave them behind, and we will not leave a member of the United States Armed Forces in the hands of the enemy. And the president seized an opportunity that the United States had, a near-term opportunity to secure the release of Sergeant Bergdahl, and that's what the president did. And that is something that the president stands by, because this is an enduring American value that predates this president, and this is a value that will remain in place for future commanders-in-chief as well.
Is there any reconsideration of that major statement that was made by the president in coming out with Bo Bergdahl's parents to announce that swap in the Rose Garden? We know that's a huge statement for the president to make. The optics of that, the message that sends in light of these charges, was that a mistake?
The message that was sent is that this president, like previous presidents, fully subscribes without exception to the theory, to the principle, to the value that the commander-in-chief will not allow a member of the United States Armed Forces to be left behind. And it was an important message for this president to deliver to the American people, but also to people all around the world, that the United States and their commander-in-chief stands squarely behind our men and women in uniform, and with the commitment that we have made to not leave them behind.
A lot happening today, a lot on your plate. Josh, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
No problem, Kate. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks so much. John?
Kate, we have new details on the investigation into Germanwings Flight 9525. The focus now on the co-pilot. Investigators believe he deliberately crashed that flight into the Alps. He's accused of locking out his fellow pilot and taking that plane down. We'll look at his final moments. New details next.
I'm Brian Vickers, NASCAR driver.
I'm Kevin Nealon, comedian.
And I'm Arnold Palmer, professional golfer. Know what we have in common?
We talked to our doctors about treatment with Xarelto. Me, when I had a blood clot in my leg that could have traveled to my lungs.
That's why I took Xarelto too.
Xarelto is proven to treat and help reduce the risk of DVT and PE blood clots.
I took Xarelto for AFib, an irregular heartbeat that can lead to a stroke from a blood clot. Xarelto is proven to reduce the risk of stroke in people with AFib, not caused by a heart valve problem.
Hey, well, I'm glad we got together.
For people with AFib currently well managed on warfarin, there is limited information on how Xarelto and warfarin compare in reducing the risk of stroke.
I tried warfarin before, but the blood testing routine and dietary restrictions had me off my game.
Tell me about it. Let's see. Golf clinic or blood clinic? Ooh, that's a tough one.
Not this time.
That was Xarelto.
Anything else?
I'll have another Arnold Palmer.
Okay.
Make mine a...
Here we get live pictures of German Chancellor Angela Merkel reacting to the stunning news that came out today that the co-pilot of Germanwings Flight 9525 deliberately crashed that plane into the Alps, killing 150 people. This is her first reaction. Let's listen.
So difficult to understand. German authorities report that we have to assume that this aircraft was deliberately activated for a crash. This is hard to comprehend for most people. Nobody can imagine this. We do not have all background information yet, and this is why it is so important that further investigations are made and every aspect is looked at. Yesterday, I, together with the French President François Hollande and with the Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy, we visited the site and thanked the rescue helpers and teams for their efforts. We promised that we as head of governments will try everything to support that the investigation is completed fully. The relatives of the victims are suffering. I would like to repeat what I have said yesterday at the crash site. I would like to give my deep sympathy to all families of all countries who lost loved ones. The German authorities, the German government will do everything possible to support them. We owe this to all people who lost their life and their relatives who suffer to such an extent. Thank you.
It was German Chancellor Angela Merkel reacting for the first time to the stunning news this morning that it was the co-pilot of Germanwings Flight 9525 who appeared to lock the captain out of the cockpit and deliberately fly that plane into the Alps, killing 150 people. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said it is difficult to understand why someone would deliberately do this. She said we have to assume, though, that is what happened now based on the investigation that is ongoing. She said that she, as a head of state, will continue to support that investigation to its fullest. And she did note that the relatives right now of those on board are suffering, and in fact, so many people around the world now suffering right along with them. We have new details, new developments breaking every minute on this story. We'll have more right after this.
There's nothing more romantic than a spontaneous moment, so why pause to take a pill? And why stop what you're doing to find a bathroom? With Cialis for daily use, you don't have to plan around either. It's the only daily tablet approved to treat erectile dysfunction, so you can be ready anytime the moment is right. Plus, Cialis treats the frustrating urinary symptoms of BPH, like needing to go frequently, day or night. Tell your doctor about all your medical conditions and medicines and ask if your heart is healthy enough for sex. Do not take Cialis if you take nitrates for chest pain, as it may cause an unsafe drop in blood pressure. Do not drink alcohol in excess. Side effects may include headache, upset stomach, delayed backache, or muscle ache. To avoid long-term injury, get medical help right away for an erection lasting more than 4 hours. If you have any sudden decrease or loss in hearing or vision, or any symptoms of an allergic reaction, stop taking Cialis and get medical help right away. Why pause the moment? Ask your doctor about Cialis for daily use. For a free 30-tablet trial, go to Cialis.com.
Here's our new trainer, Ensure Active Heart Health.
I maximize good stuff, like my potassium, and phytosterols, which may help lower cholesterol.
New Ensure Active Heart Health supports your heart and body so you stay active and strong. Ensure. Take life in.
OxyClean White Revive with more whitening power than chlorine bleach. You'll see the difference. On tough stains, pre-soak and wash. OxyClean's clearly better. Plus, no bleach accidents. OxyClean White Revive. Whiter whites guaranteed.
Closed captioning brought to you by MeSoBook.com.
People who have been diagnosed with mesothelioma have many questions. That's why we offer this free book. Call 1-800-400-5415.
On the next Finding Jesus, the True Cross. It's one of the most sought-after relics in the world, but with thousands of fragments, can science identify the true cross?
We have the tools to solve it.
Finding Jesus, Sunday night at 9 on CNN.
Attention homeowners. Quicken Loans has some very important information regarding the U.S. government's Home Affordable Refinance Program, or HARP. Nearly 3 million homeowners have already taken advantage of this fantastic money-saving program. But there are so many more of you who could be saving hundreds of dollars every month on your mortgage. Quicken Loans is here to help you save money. Why Quicken Loans? The home loan experts at Quicken Loans fully understand the HARP guidelines. We'll work with you to understand your specific circumstances and strive to find the financial solution that's best for you. Then we'll guide you through each step of the mortgage refinance process to make sure that it's both simple and easy. If you weren't HARP eligible in the past, new guidelines could mean that now you are. Give us a call and we'll give you a Quicken Loans mortgage review. It's simple and easy. To learn more about this money-saving U.S. government program, call Quicken Loans today or go to QuickenLoans.com for a mortgage experience that's engineered to amaze.
Anderson Cooper 360, tonight at 8 Eastern on CNN.
Stunning developments in the deadly crash of Germanwings Flight 9525. According to the French prosecutor, the co-pilot deliberately crashed that plane with all 150 people on board. The prosecutor says 28-year-old German national Andreas Lubitz locked the captain out of the cockpit and activated the plane's descent. The captain could be heard on the cockpit voice recorder trying to smash the door down, trying to get back in. Investigators believe the co-pilot was completely conscious during the descent of that plane because of the nature of his breathing.
So far as I know, there's no camera within the cockpit to film the co-pilot, but we don't get the feeling that there was any particular panic because the breathing remained steady. How can you tell from his breathing that he was conscious? Well, the breathing was not faltering. It was normal, human, normal breathing.
That was a French prosecutor talking right there, giving all of those amazing details. He emphasized that the co-pilot activated the descent of the plane, and that can only be done deliberately. There's a lot of technicalities in here that are very important. Let's get to it. Let's try to break it down just a little bit with safety analyst and former FAA Inspector David Susi. So, David, as you said, it took a long time to build this system. It's difficult to explain. But let's start first on this idea of a deliberate act to activate the descent that they're discussing.
All right.
Tell us what that means. We're looking at the Airbus A320 cockpit right now.
Right. So there's a little knob right up here on this eyebrow panel, this one right here. And what that knob does is it sets the rate of descent. So if you want to go at 1,000 feet per minute down, you set that at 1,000. If you want to go at 9,000, you set it at 9,000. But that's what controls the descent or the ascent. You can say I want to go up 1,000 feet as well. That's what he's saying was intentionally moved. There are some detents in this. Some models you just spin it, you know, and it knows you're going that way and it moves it up. But the detents are so that you go in 1,000 feet increments or 100-foot increments as you go up or down with it. So he's saying that he reached up, turned that down to about 3,500 feet per minute descent.
Sounds difficult to make that be an accident, and no one's saying accident at this point.
I mean, look how far you are from here. You're not going to hit your head on that or accidentally catch a sleeve or anything like that.
And to that point, is there any evidence that this wasn't deliberate? Any evidence you've seen that they've discussed, any of the details, that this was not a deliberate act?
There's a couple of things that, and I'm really reaching here because this is not something that I think is a high percentage,
I see what you're saying.
We need to just rule it out. So, number one, this is the control yoke right here. So this is the way you fly the airplane, with just a joystick, basically. So the thought is here, if he passed out and pushed that forward as he fell forward, it would have gone forward, it would have initiated that rate of descent and overrode this. So the airplane would have continued down. Now, even though that's set at 0, it would continue that trajectory, even though this is still set at 0.
But again, they still say that everything that they know is that it is deliberate.
That's right. Second thing, real quick. If the pilot got up from here and his sleeve caught this, going this direction, it would have changed the rate of descent.
Okay.
But from what we can tell, he's already out of there.
He's already out of the plane before that happened.
Exactly.
Now let's go to where the focus really is.
Yes.
Two things. This is the override panel outside the cockpit to get in. This is the lock panel to lock the door on the inside.
Right.
We know now something happened here. We don't know two things. We don't know that the override was attempted. That's one thing we don't know.
Right.
We also don't know if the lock button was pushed. But we have to assume something happened because that's what the airline had said.
Right.
Walk us through this, David. This is important.
Okay.
Why does the 5 minutes matter?
Okay, what happens here is if the co-pilot, what they're saying is that the co-pilot intentionally did the lock. So no matter what the pilot did to try to get back in, there's no door handle, there's no way to get in. So what he does is he notifies the guy, I've got to get in. Well, if the co-pilot decides he doesn't want him in, he just clicks that down, it spring loads back to the normal position, and he's got 5 minutes of solitude. No one's going to come in there at all. It's impossible.
So then after that, how does this 30 seconds play in?
Oh, what that works is that if he wants to get in, he hits the button, and what this is for is in case both pilots are incapacitated. So what happens here is the flight attendant says, hey, I can't reach anybody up there. She puts in a special code that only her, sometimes some people, the crew knows it, but she puts a special code in. That little code goes over to the front of the pilot, but it gives you a 30-second loud siren type warning, or buzzer type warning. That goes on for 30 seconds. Now, pilots have a choice. If they're incapacitated, they're not going to respond to that.
Right.
However, what they need to do in that 30 seconds is either lock that door or
do nothing.
Let them in, or wait 30 seconds and do nothing, and then the door automatically opens.
And what that, all of this, there's a lot of detail that needs to come out of how this all played out. But what that also does tell you is there's a lot of time that could have passed when they're trying to initiate this override.
5 minutes, 30 seconds.
5 minutes, 30 seconds,
Right.
and more. And we're talking 8+ minutes of this descent before this crash happens.
Not
And
a lot of time.
Not a lot of time, and very complex system.
We've
right
talked
here.
probably for 8 minutes. or
Exactly
more,
right.
You know.
David, thank you
Yeah.
so much, as
Right.
always.
Thank you.
All right. John?
Kate, the FBI has been called in to assist in the investigation into Andreas Lubitz, the co-pilot that officials now say deliberately crashed Germanwings Flight 9525. We have new information on just what investigators hope to get their hands on in the coming hours. That's next.
It's time to experience what's made Lexus the fastest growing automotive luxury brand on the road. There's never been a better time to drive a Lexus. During the Command Performance Sales Event, get great offers on your favorite Lexus models, now through March 31st. See your Lexus dealer.
Before I had the shooting, burning, pins and needles of diabetic nerve pain, these feet grew up in a family of boys. Married my high school sweetheart and pursued a degree in education. But I couldn't bear my diabetic nerve pain any longer. So I talked to my doctor, and she prescribed Lyrica.
Nerve damage from diabetes causes diabetic nerve pain. Lyrica is FDA approved to treat this pain. Lyrica may cause serious allergic reactions or suicidal thoughts or actions. Tell your doctor right away if you have these, new or worsening depression, or unusual changes in mood or behavior, or swelling, trouble breathing, rash, hives, blisters, muscle pain with fever, tired feeling, or blurry vision. Common side effects are dizziness, sleepiness, weight gain, and swelling of hands, legs, and feet. Don't drink alcohol while taking Lyrica. Don't drive or use machinery until you know how Lyrica affects you. Those who have had a drug or alcohol problem may be more likely to misuse Lyrica.
Now I have less diabetic nerve pain, and I love helping first graders put their best foot forward.
Ask your doctor about Lyrica.
In my world, wall isn't a street.
Return on investment isn't the only return I'm looking forward to.
For some, every dollar is earned with sweat, sacrifice, courage. Which is why USAA is honored to help our members with everything from investing for retirement to saving for college. Our commitment to current and former military members and their families is without equal. Start investing with as little as $50.
Tired of working for peanuts? Well, what if I told you that peanuts can work for you? That's right. I'm talking full-time delivery of 7 grams of protein and 6 essential nutrients. You ever seen a peanut take a day off? I didn't think so. Harness the hard-working power of the peanut.
I'm Chris Cuomo in Paris.
We have 3 major breaking stories this morning. This is changing the game.
We're going to take you through the tornado's path.
Your vision, how does that work?
What do you believe you can do?
This just into CNN.
Thank you for coming on New Day.
New Day, tomorrow at 6 a.m. Eastern on CNN.
Did you know that the flu vaccine cannot give you the flu? Everyone 6 months and older should get a flu shot to protect themselves and their families. Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Williams with ProHealth Physicians, encouraging you to stay informed about the health matters that affect you.
ProHealth Physicians is on the pulse of social media to share information about health and nutrition with the community. Get up-to-the-minute alerts, including ProHealth Physicians news and upcoming events. Connecticut's leading group of primary care doctors is just a click away.
Recovering from a heart attack, stroke, or surgery can be difficult, especially for seniors. Vernon Manor Healthcare Center offers a completely renovated and upgraded short-term unit with a wing of hotel-quality private and semi-private rooms. We combine luxury and comfort with state-of-the-art technology to help patients achieve a quick and effective recovery. With over 40 years of experience, we were voted Best Nursing Home 2014 by U.S. News and World Report. Rebuild, recover, renew at Vernon Manor. Call or visit online today.
Crisis Hotline. Veterans Press 1. Tuesday at 9 on CNN.
Our breaking news, the French government has now formally requested the FBI's help in the investigation into the crash of Germanwings Flight 9525. Officials now say the co-pilot deliberately crashed the aircraft into the Alps. That co-pilot, 28-year-old Andreas Lubitz, is now the focus of an intense investigation. I want to bring in CNN Justice reporter Evan Perez, also with us, former FBI Assistant Director and CNN law enforcement analyst Tom Fuentes. Evan, let's start with you. The FBI called in to help here. What will they be doing?
Well, John, it's not just the FBI, but also U.S. intelligence agencies that are now going all over their databases to see if there's anything that they can find that indicates that anything that could explain what perhaps what this pilot was thinking in the last couple of weeks, in the last few days before taking this flight. The FBI is going to be assisting with the French with anything they ask for, but we know for a fact that one of the things they're going to try to do is go talk to the Lufthansa training facility, talk to people there to see if they can provide any information about perhaps the mindset, anything indicating anything wrong with this pilot, because according to the to Lufthansa, the co-pilot trained at a facility there in Arizona, and that is something the FBI is going to do here at home. And beyond the FBI, we know that the NSA and other intelligence agencies have databases that capture a lot of foreign communications, which has been something of a controversy in Germany and other parts of Europe. And now those databases are going to come in handy because you're going to have analysts poring over them to see if there's any communication between this pilot and perhaps anybody that is on a terror list that the United States is worried about.
Tom Fuentes, Evan just laid out some of the possibilities there. You have been on the inside for investigations like this. Now you have the information from investigators that they believe the co-pilot deliberately crashed this plane. What is it you are doing right now? Talking to his family, talking to his friends, tracing his last steps over the last few days. What's the key here?
Right, all of that would be going on, but I'd like to add that the request for the FBI that just went out today, that's just a formality. The FBI has already been working with the authorities. It has a large office in Paris, Berlin, and Madrid, already involved in doing backgrounds, looking at the passenger list, the crew list, and the pilots, scrubbing all the databases in the U.S., and they would also be using Interpol to go through channels for all of the countries that had passengers on that plane. So this is not something that started today. The criminal investigation would have started the day the plane crashed, the minute the plane crashed, because they can't wait till later on to determine, oh yeah, it wasn't an accident, something bad happened, to start that investigation. So Tom, those investigations go on simultaneously.
Tom, in your experience, if a guy is going to do this, deliberately crash a plane, does he leave some kind of trail?
Sometimes. You know, sometimes they'll, over the last couple of days preceding this, maybe stop grooming themselves as closely, or look a little bit disheveled, or not shave as closely, or, you know, maybe tell a sign that way that the end is near. But sometimes they don't. And as Miles O'Brien has said so many times, we don't have black boxes inside people's heads, and that's the problem. You don't know until you really go into his social media accounts, emails, phone calls, friends, neighbors, relatives, to see is there any sign that indicates that he was having some type of problems, financial, marital, you name it, that may have indicated a desire to end it all.
That's what will be happening right now on the ground in Europe, and no doubt, as Evan points out, in the United States, where this co-pilot came and trained for a bit. Tom Fuentes, Evan Perez, thanks so much. Kate?
A lot more to digest. Thank you, John. So who is the co-pilot we're looking at? Prosecutors say that deliberately crashed the flight. He's 28-year-old German national Andreas Lubitz. Prosecutors say that Lubitz took advantage of the moment when the pilot left the cockpit. He then activated the plane's descent when he was alone at the controls. The CEO of Lufthansa says the co-pilot had passed all flight examinations and was, quote, 100% fit to fly. Also adding that he, the CEO, is speechless that this guy appears to have deliberately crashed the plane. I think everyone can say that. Richard Quest is joining us once again. Richard, you know this industry so well. You've got the big question of why. Let's start with what exactly we can know and what will be knowable, if you will.
Right.
Where does the investigation go now with all of this startling information that came out today?
So you're going to need to understand the actual tick-tock of events from the moment the captain, and I'm going to call him, the moment the captain leaves the cockpit, you want to know what happened. We know from what the prosecutor said, he leaves the cockpit and Lubitz initiates the descent by turning the autopilot from 38,000 to 100 feet. At that point, the captain obviously tries to go back into the cockpit. We do not know if he used the override procedure.
Is it we don't know because he may not have had time to?
Because we've not been
know.
told.
Okay.
In fact, the CEO of Lufthansa was specific. We don't know. Nor do we know if Lubitz double locked the door by pushing the button. So we don't know those facts. All we do know is that the captain attempts to get back in the cockpit by knocking on the door and gets more frantic as the plane goes into its further descent.
Is that information that will come out in the flight data recorder? Because the cockpit voice recorder has clearly offered a lot of information. Will additional information as explosive as that, will that come out in the flight data recorder?
It might do. It might do. I'm not familiar with whether the parameters of the cockpit door.
Yeah.
It's highly likely that it is one of the parameters that will show whether the door was locked or unlocked at the time. But for the moment, we can assume that for whatever reason, either the captain did or didn't use the override, the door, he was unable to get into the cockpit, and that is the crucial part. But none of this goes to the issue. The bigger, longer-term investigation will be: should there have been a second person in the cockpit?
Exactly right. Why not? If other airlines are doing it, this is the thing that kind of blows my mind. The safety mechanism with the door, correct me if I'm wrong, was put into place after 9/11.
It was.
So this co-pilot, go down this path with me, used to his advantage the safety and security procedures put in place to prevent something like this post 9/11 to his advantage.
Yes.
How could they not account for that?
Because somebody has to fly the plane. And this is what everybody is sort of you cannot have, you can try and have a completely foolproof mechanism, but at the end of the day, a man or a woman has to have their hands on the controls of that aircraft. Now, yes, you can have two people in the cockpit, but then we get into hit them over the head. I mean, somebody flies the plane, and in this case, you're going to be examining how to make this sort of event less likely in the future.
No, you cannot make it 100% impossible for it to happen. Richard, thank you so much. And thank you all very much for joining us at this hour.
Legal View with Ashley Banfield starts right after a short break.
It's time to experience what's made Lexus the fastest growing automotive luxury brand on the road. There's never been a better time to drive a Lexus. During the Command Performance Sales Event, get great offers on your favorite Lexus models, now through March 31st. See your Lexus dealer.
Wednesday through Sunday at Joseph A. Bank. Our entire stock of suits is 70% off. No exceptions. All solids, patterns, slim and traditional fit styles. Through Sunday, only at Joseph A. Bank.
Tired of working for peanuts? Well, what if I told you that peanuts can work for you? That's right. I'm talking full-time delivery of 7 grams of protein and 6 essential nutrients. You ever seen a peanut take a day off? I didn't think so. Harness the hard-working power of the peanut.
In this moment, your baby is getting more than clean. Your touch stimulates her senses and nurtures her mind. And the Johnson's scent, lather, and bubbles help enhance the experience. So why just clean your baby when you can give her so much more?
You totaled your brand new car. Nobody's hurt, but there will still be pain. It comes when your insurance company says they'll only pay 3/4 of what it takes to replace it. What are you supposed to do? Drive 3/4 of a car? Now, if you had Liberty Mutual new car replacement, you'd get your whole car back. I guess they don't want you driving around on 3 wheels. Smart.
New car replacement is just one of the features that comes standard with a base Liberty Mutual policy. And for drivers with accident forgiveness, rates won't go up due to your first accident. Learn more by calling 1-888-675-3155. Switch to Liberty Mutual and you could save up to $423. For a free quote today, call Liberty Mutual Insurance at 1-888-675-3155. See car insurance in a whole new light. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
I still can't believe your show's on CNN.
It's a great mystery.
Hey, I'm on CNN now. You're not on CNN.
That's because the show's not back till April 9th, Dad.
You're not on it now.
Somebody's got to do it. All new episodes start Thursday night, April 9th at 9.
So many of us carry such heavy burdens.
You crazy!
Deep within, we struggle.
Come on, babe. Let's be fun.
Because sin separates us from God.
She's having a relationship with George.
But thanks to the grace of confession, God compassionately listens, forgives, and sets us free. So if it's been a while since you've been to confession or Mass, come home and experience a fresh start. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org.
Finding Jesus, Sundays at 9 on CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley Banfield, and this is Legal View. I can't say this any better than the Lufthansa CEO. The revelations from the cockpit voice recorder of Germanwings Flight 9525 leave us, quote, speechless. If you've been following CNN's breaking news coverage on the Germanwings mystery, you know the only remaining mystery is why. Why would the co-pilot of that Airbus that crashed in the southern French Alps on Tuesday ditch that plane intentionally, deliberately, as the French criminal prosecutor asserts? Why would he lock the pilot out of the cockpit? To date, it seems nothing points to a medical crisis or an inadvertent mistake.
The action on this height altitude selector can only be done deliberately. So moving the altitude control can only be done deliberately. We hear several requests from the pilot asking to have access to the cockpit using what is called a cockpit call system, which is an intercommunication system. So he identifies himself, but there's no response from the co-pilot.
Co-pilot, that would be this man, and the very first photograph that's emerged of Andreas Lubitz. He was a 28-year-old German national who'd flown for Lufthansa's Germanwings subsidiary for 18 months. The airline said he passed all of his training and that he cleared all of his screenings. But get this, Lufthansa does not do psychological tests. On the fringe of the crash site today, recovery teams were joined by hundreds of crash victims' relatives flown in from Germany and Spain. The site itself is reachable only by helicopter, into which specifically trained, equipped experts are lowered by cables and ropes. Despite all of that, some human remains have now been recovered, and authorities say they are hopeful that they will also be able to find that much sought-after flight data recorder. CNN is covering every angle of this story as only CNN can. And first up for us this hour, our senior international correspondent, Nick Robertson, who's standing by live near the families and the first responders in that staging area in France. So, Nick, what is so remarkable is to hear these officials say they are speechless about these revelations that the co-pilot deliberately did this. They are not motionless, though. What steps are they now taking to figure out what happened and how to get to the bottom of this?
Well, what they are trying to do is investigate further the background of the co-pilot. They hope to get that data recorder to perhaps pick up some more clues, potentially about what he did. Potentially there may be information in there, but as this seems to be what we're told by the prosecutor, the action not of a suicide, it's not of somebody bent on suicide, but somebody bent on murdering 149 people. It does seem that the voice recorder is really the big piece of information here, and that's now already in the hands of the prosecutors, of the criminal investigators. This is a criminal investigation now, as well as a crash investigation. But we've been standing here, and behind me you can see the families of the victims. 7 large buses were brought in, and I'll just step out of the way so we can see the families here. They are gathered around a memorial. On that memorial are the names of all the people who were aboard the aircraft when it crashed. We've been able to see in amongst the medical professionals, the people that the French authorities have brought in here to help the psychological trauma and the process of grieving. We've been able to see the family members walk up individually to that memorial, perhaps read the name of their loved one, but really for them this, we're told, is the closest that they will be able to get to the crash site. From where they are right now, they will be able to look up and see the mountains and see the skyline and see the difficult terrain here. This for them is the closest that they're going to be able to get to their loved ones. But we've also heard from the prosecutor that it will be quite some time, potentially weeks, before he can repatriate any of the remains. There will be DNA testing that needs to be done, he said. So the families at the moment, while they're here in this tiny field, dwarfed by the huge mountains and dwarfed by the sense of enormity of what's happened to them and the sense of loss that they are going through, they will know as well from the prosecutor all the details, we're told, of what happened. They will know that in the last moments before the crash that there were screams heard on that voice recorder. They will be aware of that. So for them here, they've been in the field for about an hour. This will be a moment that they will be taking as long as they can, and the French authorities seem to be allowing as much time as they need to stand here and absorb everything around them. But they will, by seeing the terrain, will now fully understand why it is so hard for the recovery teams, the investigation teams, to get into the site. It is high in the mountains, in the craggy peaks of the mountains behind me that we've seen the helicopters fly into for the past couple of days to winch down those recovery teams.
It's a remarkable picture you just showed us, Nick, behind you. I'm peeking over your shoulder and I'm seeing at the same time while they are at a memorial, they're also witnessing these responders. They're in the middle of the staging area. They can see these emergency vehicles. They can see the emergency workers, the helicopters taking off and landing, and understandably they must know what is coming back on those helicopters. Nick Robertson, excellent reporting for us this morning. Thank you for that. You know, Lufthansa says that it doesn't have any clues as to why a promising young pilot with no known ties to crime or to terrorism would intentionally crash a commercial airliner. CNN's Justice correspondent Pamela Brown joins me now with more about what we do know about this man, Andreas Lubitz. I know you've been talking to a lot of your FBI contacts. Do we know anything at all about this man that might help us get some answers to why he would do this?
Bottom line, no, Ashley. I mean, it's still very puzzling right now, and it's still very early in the early stages of the investigation. So we have a lot to learn about this man, Andreas Lubitz, the 28-year-old co-pilot who the prosecutor says deliberately crashed the plane into the Alps. Here's what we can tell you. The CEO of Lufthansa said he passed all of the necessary qualifications, certifications. He passed his flight training, his medical screening. He says that he was 100% fit to fly and that he had no record of problems. But the big looming question here, Ashley, is the fact that was he psychologically fit? And we know that Lufthansa does not have psychological testing for their pilots, according to the company. So I imagine that's going to be under some scrutiny. The CEO did say that at one point when he was going through training before he became a full-time employee in 2013 for Germanwings, that his training was interrupted for some reason, but then he did come back to complete the course. And as I mentioned, he passed all the necessary tests in order to become a full-time pilot. He had about 100 hours of experience on the type of aircraft that he was flying, and apparently he's had a dream of becoming a pilot since a very young age, according to a statement from a flying club he was a part of. Now, we do know that the FBI has offered assistance in the investigation. We know from very early on FBI agents based in Europe were helping run names from the passenger manifest through databases. But of course, investigators and the French and Germans are really taking the lead here. They're going to want to look at his background, behavior analysis, that kind of thing, Ashley. A lot of work cut out for them on this.
And Pamela, make no mistake, they were also requested. I mean, the request came from Europe for the FBI to jump on board. And I've also seen these pictures of, vehicles of officials in Europe at this co-pilot's home. I can only imagine what they're doing and what they're starting to do. Here's the video I was just referring to in terms of the investigative process. Any tips from your FBI contacts on what they are looking for and what they may have already gotten their hands on?
Well, I think bottom line here, Ashley, is they're really deferring to the French. You know, there's a whole process that goes into play with these international type of events, and we know 3 Americans were on board, but right now they're really letting the French and the Germans take the lead and let them come to the FBI and then ask for assistance. Right now, they're just really in standby mode still, Ashley, to see what kind of assistance is needed, and that's really where things stand on the FBI's point of view.
Yeah. All right, Pamela Brown, stand by. Thank you for that. It is hard to know where to begin at this point, but I have an expert panel who has a lot of information and can help us get towards some answers. Perhaps CNN aviation correspondent Richard Quest joins me live. CNN safety analyst David Soucy is here. Boeing 777 Captain Les Abend is live with us in London, and also in Washington, D.C., CNN law enforcement analyst, retired FBI Assistant Director Tom Fuentes is with us as well. Richard Quest, I want to begin with you. We have the cockpit voice recorder. Yes, it yields remarkable information. We do not have the flight data recorder. Is it at all premature to make these determinations that this is an intentional crash of a co-pilot?
Absolutely not. We didn't make it. The prosecutor did, and the CEO did. Let me remind you what the CEO said. I am speechless that this aircraft was deliberately crashed by the co-pilot. I mean, you know, Carsten Spohr, who I've known for a while, doesn't make those sort of statements lightly. Now, we don't know why he did it, but he did it. And this is no longer speculation.
And there is nothing that the data recorder can tell us different.
The data recorder, not really. I mean, we're now going into the ifs and the whys. And what's the data recorder going to tell us? It's going to show us the mechanisms by which it is. It'll tell us, was the cockpit door forcefully locked? In other words, with the lock mechanism. Was the override mechanism tried to? It'll tell us bits and bobs. But we know that he turned the altimeter from 38,000 to 100 feet.
And that I want to get you on, David Soucy. The investigative nature of this, they were so quick to come to this determination. Is it just that simple? You could hear him breathing, and he took specific steps to make sure, A, the pilot couldn't get back in, and B, that plane was on the way down.
Those are undeniable steps, too. There takes an effort. It wasn't bumped. It wasn't by mistake. It wasn't an error. This is a rate of descent button that you turn to set what altitude, what rate of descent you want to have. That rate of descent is finite. So that's going to go at that rate. There was no question that, and in fact, that information is sent via ADS-B, the automatic dependent radar surveillance. That's sent during ADS-B. That information of the intent, that's how we know it went to 100 feet, is because that's transmitted as well, not just where he is, but where he wants to go. We call that the fourth dimension in air traffic.
Listen, we've got so many other questions. Presumably, there could be changes afoot now for the systems in Europe in which a pilot can leave a co-pilot unattended inside a cockpit. But there are other questions as well. Most importantly, who was this co-pilot? What is on his computer? What conversations has he had? And what was his psychological state of mind? And why was he never tested? All of those answers hopefully coming.
Sunday dinners at my house.
You're waiting for my lasagna, aren't you?
It's a full day for me, and I love it. But when I started having back pain, my sister had to come help. I don't like asking for help. I took Tylenol, but I had to take 6 pills to get through the day. So my daughter brought over some Aleve. It's just 2 pills all day. And now,
to family.
I'm back.
Aleve, 2 pills, all day strong, all day long. And for a good night's rest, try Aleve PM for a better AM.
My advice for healthy-looking, radiant skin? A good night's sleep and Aveeno.
Only Aveeno Positively Radiant has an active naturals total soy formula. It helps reduce the look of brown spots in just 4 weeks.
Aveeno, naturally beautiful results.
Can a protein originally found in a jellyfish improve your memory? Our scientists say yes. Researchers have discovered a protein that actually supports healthier brain function. It's the breakthrough in a supplement called Prevagen. As we age, we lose proteins that support our brain. Prevagen supplements these proteins and has been clinically shown to improve memory. It's safe and effective. For support of healthier brain function, a sharper mind, and clearer thinking, try Prevagen for yourself today.
Honda introduced the first full line of four-stroke outboards to America and currently boasts the most durable SUV in its class. Put the two together, and you've got one of our greatest innovations yet. The Honda Dream Garage Sales Event, where you'll find great deals on almost everything Honda makes. Amazing deals, amazing products.
The Honda Dream Garage Sales Event. Get a dream deal on a Pilot with standard rear view camera. Now, at your Honda dealer.
My husband said, "You're beautiful and I love you, but I'm worried about your health and your weight. I'm worried we're going to lose you." That was my moment.
When your moment comes, you can count, track, and worry over every meal. Or you can lose weight simply with Jenny Craig.
Just walk in or call. Meet your dedicated personal consultant who helps you reach your goals. Pick out delicious food and start losing now. Visit jennycraig.com for our best offer ever.
A moment can change your whole life with Jenny Craig.
Will you help us find a new house for you and your brother?
You're not just looking for a house. You're looking for a place for your life to happen. Zillow.
Nobody puts your old 401k in the corner. Roll it over into a TD Ameritrade IRA with lots of investment choices. TD Ameritrade, you got this.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-888-909-4332.
People ask me all the time, "George, what do I do with my idea for a new product?" I tell them, call my friends at InventHelp.
Call for free information.
More about this terrifying air crash in the Alps. We're going to talk about that cockpit door, the door that was apparently locked from the inside by the co-pilot. I want you to listen to the CEO of the parent airline Lufthansa. He talked a little bit earlier about how that door technically works and how someone in the cockpit can keep it locked.
If one of the pilots leaves the cockpit, then it's possible to ring at the outside and the pilot can have a look and see who wishes to enter the cockpit. If it's the colleague or another crew member, then there is a button and you can open the electronically secured door. We, of course, have procedures that in case a pilot has left the cockpit and the pilot inside is unconscious, then you have a further code that can be used on the door. And this leads also to a ringing sound. And if this buzzing sound, nobody opens the door after this buzzing sound, then electrically the door is automatically opened. But the pilot inside the cockpit can prevent this in order to keep the door shut.
Back with me, Richard Quest, also David Susi, airliner captain Les Abend, and Tom Fuentes, our law enforcement analyst. So quickly, I just want to get to you, Richard Quest, with some breaking news. The issue for so many people has been, how on earth can one co-pilot be alone inside a cockpit when in America that's not possible?
Because countries in Europe do not have a standard rule like the FAA has here, that if one person leaves and a flight attendant has to go in. Some, it's done airline by airline. Many airlines did introduce such a rule post MH370. Norwegian, which is of course an airline that now flies to the United States, very large low-cost carrier in Europe, and has just put out a statement, if I may just read you the salient part. Norwegian says, in the light of this terrible accident, we are speeding up the process so that 2 people from the flight crew are always present in the cockpit. This means if one of the pilots leaves the cockpit, a crew member must replace him or her during this time. I will expect to receive many more such emails from airlines in the days, if not hours ahead.
Norwegian is the first, and you expect that to be a tip
Absolutely.
of the domino. Les Abend, if I can bring you in on this as well, I think for many of us, we assumed that a distress call could be made from outside the cockpit as well, that a flight attendant who is terrified about something going on in a cockpit could reach ground control to say, we're in crisis. This is not the case.
It is not the case, and most airlines don't have the satellite phones anymore available to the passengers, so it really is not the case. Perhaps by email that could be done for some airplanes that have Wi-Fi on board, but no, there's no provision that the aircraft manufacturer makes for it. It's strictly the way the distress call comes is traditionally from the cockpit. This situation is extremely disturbing to me as an airline pilot. It hurts on many levels. The public trust has been betrayed. There's a lot of aspects to this that.
What about pilots'
painful.
trust? You're a pilot. I hate to even think about your position if you were on the outside of that cockpit door trying to get back in. What kind of trust do you now have about every pilot with whom you fly?
Ashley, this is not something that I would even conceive of considering with the people. I flew over to London today from New York with a gentleman that's basically a Air Force war hero. He's been under a lot of stress for various reasons. He refuels airplanes in flight. There's a lot of interesting backgrounds. This is not something I would ever conceive of any of my colleagues for the airline that I fly for.
And presumably, Les, you're a pilot of a 777. You know exactly what was going through the mind of that pilot, as he may originally have quietly been trying to get back in that door. Maybe the passengers didn't know until much more towards the actual moment of impact. But that pilot knew, didn't he?
Well, of course he knew. He probably tried by interphone to get through to the co-pilot. But I'd like to back up a little bit. This was a short period of time at cruise altitude that this co-pilot had control of the airplane, or even just at cruise altitude when the typical routine is you've got the airplane, I'm going to leave, I'm going to go to the lavatory, I'm going to grab a cup of coffee. It was a very short period of time, so he took this opportunity very quickly to lock that captain out. But he would have called, the captain would have called from the interphone, and the last thing in the world we would have expected would be to be denied entry back into our own cockpit.
Can't imagine what he was thinking. Tom Fuentes, if I can get you back in on this about that co-pilot denying entry, and he had to have done it at least once and maybe twice in order to bridge those 2 5-minute locking periods. From a law enforcement perspective, now that the FBI has been formally requested for their assistance in this investigation, what are they doing to comb through the life of this co-pilot?
Well, first of all, Ashley, that part of the investigation would be done by the locals. What the FBI would be doing, and has been doing, it isn't just today that they came in on this, in spite of what the politicians say. They've been involved from the very beginning in trying to check the passenger manifest, the crew, and the pilots against U.S. databases, against any information here. The U.S. intelligence community would also be involved in this. So the assistance to the French would have begun the second that plane hit the ground and they knew it had crashed. So the criminal investigation doesn't start at some later date when they think a criminal act happened. It happens immediately and runs parallel to the investigation of whether there was a mechanical problem or what the aircraft actually
but Tom,
did.
You know what I'm asking. Sure, they investigate the crew right away, but once you've narrowed this down to a co-pilot locking the pilot out and deliberately crashing, I'm guessing every single one of the friends and family members that are known possibly to investigators are being canvassed, and that they have taken every single device that he's ever laid eyes on and touched, whether it's in an office, a home, a vacation home, a friend's home, and they are absolutely combing every single hard drive to find out what could have motivated this.
That's right. That's what the Germans would be doing, and the French prosecutor directing whatever assistance they want, from searching the pilot's home in Germany to his computers to his email records, subpoenaing social media records. All of that would be done in Germany by the Germans. What the U.S. would be doing, and the FBI would also be doing, is the time that he spent in the U.S. What did he do? Where did he go? What was he doing while he was here? Who did he associate with? Those kind of things. But just because they've asked the FBI or immediately the FBI provided assistance doesn't mean the FBI is going to march into somebody's home in the middle of Germany or France or Spain and start combing the area and doing searches or any of that. None of that is happening. The local police, and actually the local magistrate, runs the investigation in the European system, and the FBI and the police and intelligence community and Interpol all provide assistance in going through their databases and any other direct assistance they can provide.
And the European officials, I'll remind our viewers, made it known today that while families are grieving, the pilots' families and the co-pilots' families are on an alternate path. This was sort of the language that was translated. They are not grieving alongside those passengers' families. They are being brought to a separate area. They are being kept separate. My guess is that perhaps the co-pilot's family even more so now that this new revelation has been made. All of our guests, if you could stand by for a moment, we want to look, clearly if you fly, you're as astounded by the developments as anybody who's been watching this story, and you may have a lot of questions about this crash. We're inviting you to tweet those questions to the hashtag GermanWings-QS at CNN. Just have a look at your screen. GermanWings-QS, pardon me, no dash. Hashtag GermanWings-QS at CNN. We're going to try to answer some of your questions as we move along through this program. In the meantime, what about that mental stability we talked about a few moments ago? Pilots literally have our lives in their hands, and they have to be certified physically fit before they can fly. But what about the mental health evaluations? Is enough being done to make sure that pilots are mentally stable?
Moms know their